Welcome to a special edition of Go Vote Omaha. This is a candidate forum for the Omaha Public Power District Subdivision 4, presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. I'm Geri Simon, a League member and moderator for the forum. The League of Women Voters never supports or opposes political parties or candidates. We present forums solely for voter education. Here's the format for our forum. Each candidate will get a 1-minute opening statement. We'll follow with a question and answer period where each candidate has 90 seconds to answer every question. We'll conclude with a 1-minute closing statement for each candidate. A timekeeper will signal the candidates when they have 30 seconds of time remaining and when to stop speaking. Before the forum began this evening, we drew lots to determine the speaking order of our candidates, and I'll introduce them to you in that order now. There are 3 candidates running in the primary election for OPPD Subdivision 4. All of them are with us this evening, and they are Chuck Hutchison, Rick Yoder, and Fred Ulrich. Welcome to all of you. And we'll go right to our opening statements, beginning with Chuck Hutchison.
First, thank you to the League of Women Voters for inviting us to participate in this candidate forum. I've served in the Navy for 24 years, first as a nuclear trained submarine officer and then later supporting overseas contingency operations from U.S. Cyber Command. I'm currently a civilian operations research analyst at Stratcom. I am a local real estate investor. I serve as the chair of a SID board and the president of a condominium association. I also participated last year in a Chamber of Commerce leadership program and have been actively involved in my youth leadership or youth ministry program at church for the last 10 years. I am very concerned about the rate increases we see happening at OPPD, 44% over the last 8 years. I'm running to bring my experience, my interest in the community, and my knowledge of the issues to help OPPD navigate the challenges facing the U.S. power industry.
Thank you. Rick Yoder.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to join your forum today. I appreciate it. My background is as a mechanical engineer, and I work as a business advisor at the Nebraska Business Development Center. I focus on efficiency and reducing waste through prevention strategies. I have been in Cass County since 1992, where I live with my wife. We raised a couple of kids on 10 acres south of Murray, Nebraska, and have enjoyed the rural lifestyle there. I am running for OPPD because it's time for a change, basically. While reliability has been something that OPPD has done well, the leadership can do more. I want to work on affordability and accountability. These are 2 issues where I think improvement can be made by cutting costs and by providing a new view for the board.
Thank you. Fred Ulrich.
Hi, thanks again for having this forum. It's a very entertaining way to present our views to the public. My name is Fred Ulrich. I'm a lifelong Cass County resident. I was born in Cass County, went to a one-room country school in rural Louisville. Graduated from Plattsman High School and the University of Nebraska in 1972. After having served in the Army and worked for the Navy, I returned to the family farm in 1977 and have been there ever since. I have 4 grown children and 9 grandchildren and 2 step-grandchildren. And I've been on this board since 1986 when I was appointed by Governor Carey. I've enjoyed my service on it. It's been a challenging service, but the utility industry is very important to southeast Nebraska, especially to the rural areas. We're developing economic development in that area is key to the utility helping those towns and the farms, and I intend to continue to provide that support to those people.
Thank you. We'll go to our first question, and it is, would you support privatizing public utilities? We'll start with Rick Yoder.
No, I am not in favor of privatizing public power. Public power was invented. The father of public power was Senator George Norris from Nebraska, and it's a proud Nebraska heritage. I don't have any problems, however, with weaving in a little bit of the free market into the public power structure. So, for example, in Cass County, both NPPD and OPPD operate across the road from each other. And I have no problem as someone who lives near one border in seeking to get services from the other power. So that would be a little market competition, so I have no problem with that. Also, I think a viable way forward into this shifting technology, this shifting energy market, is for OPPD to work in partnership with private owners of energy production. In southeast Nebraska, this could be represented by distributed generation of renewable energy that would be owned by landowners. There are many landowners in the 7 counties of southeast Nebraska and who are interested in generating electricity either from solar or wind and working in cooperation with OPPD. If OPPD doesn't do this, these people will remove themselves from the grid. It represents a threat and a risk, and OPPD ought to be focused on that.
Thank you. Fred Ulrich.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I would like to take off what Rick said there about working with private industries, but first of all, I'm against privatizing. The main thing would happen is, particularly District 4 would be the big loser in that the private companies would cherry pick the larger customers, the more urban areas, and neglect the rural areas. But secondly, we've done all this, we've worked with private industry. That's how we got the wind energy system working in Nebraska, because you know we're not entitled to the tax credits that the private power companies are, but we work with buying the power from a private individual. So that's worked great, and we hope to do that with solar. We're looking at grain bin sites for solar as well for distributed energy, and we're going to roll that program out as soon as we can get the kinks worked out. But I think public power has been good for rural Nebraska particularly, and for all of Nebraska in general.
Thank you. Chuck Hutchison.
I agree that public power has been very beneficial to Nebraska. We are in a changing environment, however, and I hope that it will continue to do well for Nebraska, but there are some reasons to be concerned about the future. As long as Nebraska Public Power can maintain its focus on what's most important, which is providing reliable, low-cost electricity, which is the reason that public power was implemented, then we should stay with public power. But if public power starts to lose its focus, and right now I think it's beginning to lose its focus. OPPD has begun to lose its focus from low-cost, reliable electricity. And if that continues, then we will have to look at other options. Right now, Mid-American Energy, which is a private company, has rates that are 22% lower just on the other side of the river. And we need to ask ourselves why public power can't compete with a subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway that has to return a profit to its shareholders. So if we can't fix these issues, then we will need to be able to consider other options. But right now, I'm fully supportive of public power, and one of the reasons I'm running is to bring the focus back to where it needs to be, which is low-cost, reliable power.
Thank you. Here's our next question. Do you support the recent rate restructuring that raised the fixed fees for customers? What other options for increasing revenue does OPPD have? And we'll start with Fred Ulrich.
Sure, obviously I do support it because I voted for it. The fact is that the utility industry is changing dramatically over the last 5 to 10 years. The usage of electricity has gone down while the electronic gadgets, et cetera, has actually gone up. That's because there's more efficiencies in our electric appliances, et cetera, better insulation, better windows, et cetera. So we still bear the cost, though, of the grid, and maintaining that grid is key, essential to everybody in OPPD service territory. To properly disperse the cost of that grid use, it no longer was viable to just maintain solely or primarily on kilowatt usage. That's how it started in the 40s, and that worked for decades, but it just doesn't work anymore. The appropriate costs are not being distributed as it should be. So we instituted a way to, although it could be even more dramatic by if you did the exact math, we decided to do a staggered way to introduce this concept to the public, with the caveat that we were also going to provide financial assistance to the low usage, low income people. But the message has to be clear that we have to send to them that there is a cost for the grid, no matter how much electricity if you use some. Now, they talk about a lot of issues where the low income, low usage people, but sometimes there's high usage, low income people.
Thank you. Chuck Hutchison.
So if I had been on the board in December, I would have voted no. My primary concerns with the rate restructuring has to do with how the board rolled it out. You know, it's what we see happening as a recurring theme at the OPPD board is a lack of transparency in public power. And that's not what public power is for. And an example of what we saw in this particular case is, let's have public forums where we're going to base most of our public input on this process before the public has really heard much about it. So they do a little bit of advertising, they hold these public forums where they have very little participation, and they say, oh, the public supports this. But then when they have their public meeting, they find that there's a great deal of opposition, and they don't really want to have that much more discussion about it, and they want to hurry up and get it voted on. They do get some public input, and that public input is, to their credit, does shape the program, and they implement a low usage, low income program as a part of that, as a result of that public input they receive. But unfortunately, they had no idea how this was going to work, and so what I think you see happening is they basically were able to, without really truly understanding the impact of the low usage, low income program, they went ahead and voted for it anyway. It reminds me of, you have to vote for the bill in order to know what's in the bill. So it took 4 months later, just this month, in order for the OPPD board to really hear about how that program was going to be run.
Thank you. Rick Yoder.
So it seems to me that OPPD worked very hard, the board and the management worked very hard to do the wrong thing. I too would have voted against the rate increase. It's not that the rates didn't need to be restructured. I understand the needs to change the rate structures for a changing industry, but the way that it was done was insensitive to the public who was involved, engaged, and tried to get the board to change the way that they were moving forward. So the accountability issue that Chuck referenced, I think I agree with. I know people in our district who had made an effort to reach out, and they were just basically told that was the way it was going to be. The thing that hurt most, I think, that I found most egregious about the restructuring is that those who are rural, who are retired, who are on fixed incomes, are the ones who are hurt most. And also, it provided a disincentive for those people, for other people who have the money to be more energy efficient. And as I pointed out, I'm focused on energy efficiency and efficiencies in general, and I think that encouraging people to use more energy is not a model that is the right model for OPPD to have with its customers.
Thank you. Here's our next question. In 2009, the legislature passed LB 436, which directed the utilities to implement net metering, which credits a customer generator at the applicable retail rate for each kilowatt hour produced. Currently, OPPD credits solar households at the wholesale rate, while the Lincoln Electric system complies with the retail rate credit. How does OPPD justify this deviation from the state regulation and its intent to encourage customer-owned renewable energy resources? And we'll start with Chuck Hutchison.
So I can't speak for how OPPD, what their justification for why they do it, but I can provide you some perspective on how I think OPPD should handle that. I agree with the idea of doing it at the wholesale rate. The wholesale rate is the rate at which it costs OPPD to replace that electricity. So it's the rate that electricity goes for on the market. That's the rate that if I were to sell anything else, whether it's corn or anything else, I sell it at the rate that the market would allow. And so that's the rate at which electricity should be purchased from a windmill or wind generation plant in O'Neill, which is being built now, or from the solar generator who has it on his house.
Okay, thank you. Rick Yoder.
So, not to play with the words too much, but the intent may be one thing, but I'm not sure that the language required action. I would say that the intent is something I agree with. I think policies ought to be in place to encourage, and incentives ought to be in place to encourage what we want. And what we want is distributed renewable energy generation that makes cost-effective sense. If you look across the river, just as was pointed out earlier, those money-making utilities are paying the retail rates. So it can be done, and I would encourage that it be done.
Thank you. Fred Ulrich.
Well, certainly I feel that the wholesale rate is the appropriate rate to charge. Obviously, it goes back to my previous comments about the cost of the grid. Chuck's exactly right about the fact that the wholesale rate is what you could buy electricity for on the open market, and that's appropriate to pay to the people that we're buying it from the solar deal plans or deals on their roofs. But coincidentally, New Mexico and other places are going to the same route. It's the only way utilities can survive in this distributed generation era. And we continue to look for ways to be more cooperative with these distributed generation in partnership with them, to encourage them to do the right thing, to save energy for everybody. That works for everybody, but we just can't let that subsidy, so to speak, pass on to the people that can't afford solar panels on their roofs or windmills in their backyard. So we have to make sure we're fair to everybody, both the people that are conserving and those that are not. We want to make sure that's fair and equitable to everyone.
Thank you. Here's our next question. What should be the long-term plan for power for Omaha? Should we seek to eliminate all use of fossil fuels? Do you support continuing plans to comply with the Clean Power Plan? And we'll start with Rick Yoder.
So I do support the Clean Power Plan. The fact that it stopped at the Supreme Court does not mean that work is not going on in spite of that. The question from the Supreme Court was focused on Section 111D of the Clean Air Act. Section 115 of the Clean Air Act also provides authority for the Clean Power Plan. This will work its way out through the courts over time. In the meanwhile, those local air authorities, whether it be the Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Department, whether it be Department of Environmental Quality, and others, are working not only with each other in the state, but with others in the region to determine how to move forward. And so, so from that statutory regulatory requirement, even though it is not held in force by the courts, it is something that the authorities are moving forward as though it will move forward. As for moving away from coal, coal's day is done. You can't build, no one will be building a new coal-fired power plant, in part because Wall Street will not finance a new coal-fired power plant. It is a technology, and the time is changing. It is as though Kodak would not give way to digital photography. It is like the Plattsmouth Bridge having to give way to the one on Highway 34. It is like the Civic Auditorium having to give way to the CenturyLink. The technology is changing.
Thank you. Fred Ulrich.
Well, certainly Rick's right about the fact that coal's future is certainly limited. I'd like to point out that OPPD continues to press forward as if the Clean Power Plan were going to come into effect. We're trying to work with the governor, and if he continues to object with the other utilities, major utilities in Nebraska, to work forward, we're poised to be in excellent shape. With our wind coming on in 2017 and our nuclear power plant, we're well on the way to, we're almost 2/3 carbon-free generation. We closed 3 units in North Omaha this year, and switching 2 more over to natural gas in the year 2022, 23, in that time frame. And we continue to upgrade our emissions controls at Nebraska City 1 to make compliance with the Clean Power Plan. So we're looking forward that will eventually happen. Environmental regulations seldom go backwards. We understand that. We're not having our head in the sand. We know what we have to do is continue to look forward to limit our use of carbon producing fuels. We also have a new power plan concept under consideration right now that will evaluate all kinds of things, from distributed energy to buying power off the grid, to these small instantly firing up generators that are limited in size but can be staggered. So the problem with relying too much on wind or solar is you can lose it fast. You have to be able to react quick, and we're working towards that.
Thank you. And Chuck Hutchison.
So I believe, I'll just go back to my main point, which is the purpose of the public power in Nebraska is to provide reliable, low-cost electricity. And so that should be the primary focus for the district's actions. As it relates to the Clean Power Plan, I think the Supreme Court got it right. The EPA has overstepped its bounds. Unfortunately, that's not an issue that OPPD really has any control or authority over. So we will have to regulate and be in an uncertain regulatory environment whether or not that policy will actually enter into place. So we will have to continue, the district needs to continue to prepare for what it may be in place or be prepared in the event that it doesn't, that it has the flexibility. So the options that it should consider and should move towards are the ones that give it the most flexibility. To be able to take advantage in the event that we have a Republican administration that chooses not to continue to fight for the Clean Power Plan, then that would be beneficial to us. And in the event that that occurs, then we are advantaged to be able to take, to look at the low-cost options. So right now, what the district needs to focus on is how to maintain flexibility so that it can keep its focus on low-cost, reliable electricity.
Thank you. And we're going to go into our closing statements, and we have a little time, so we can give you an extra 30 seconds. You can have 90 seconds to do your closing statements if you wish. And we'll start with Fred Ulrich.
Certainly. Once again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum. It's been my pleasure to serve on this board for these number of years. We face great many challenges in OPPD and public power and the utility industry as a whole. But we feel that there are strategies in place and ones that we're working on to cut our overhead costs, to change our way of generating fuel, or generating electricity, and to move forward in the future that will keep our rates low and mainly also keep our financial house in order. If we lose our bond rating agency, that costs us a lot of money, and we need to make sure we keep our financial house in order. So drastic steps are not a good thing. I like what Chuck said about maintaining the flexibility, and that's what we're really trying to do, is remain flexible as we go through this Clean Power Plan and this changing industry, that we can react relatively quickly while still keeping our financial house in order, and that's our goal. A wise man told me when I first got on the OPPD board, his name was Mo Miller. He was the former president of the Omaha National Bank, which has since gone, I think. But he said, electricity's got to be available, affordable, and reliable. Otherwise, it's not worth anything. And that's what I've always tried to do on my service at OPPD, and I will continue to do that and represent rural Nebraskans on this district.
Thank you. Chuck Hutchison.
Again, thanks again for inviting us, and thank you for Rick, to Rick, and thank you, Fred, for this interesting dialogue. It's been very interesting and informative to the voters. You know, the issues that are facing OPPD do not lend themselves well to quick, canned answers, so I invite everyone to my website, chuckforoppd.com, or give me a call, 402-804-8282, and I'd be happy to talk more in depth about any of these issues. You know, how OPPD chooses to navigate this challenging regulatory environment will have lasting repercussions for the district and all of the customers, all of the industrial customers, for farmers, for small business owners, for people who live in apartments. Regardless of what you do, you use electricity, and this is important. So I appreciate the opportunity to inform voters on these important issues. Our low electricity rates, as I've already mentioned, used to be a selling point for this area. OPPD used to have among the lowest rates, but that's no longer the case. In the example I gave with Mid-American Energy, meaning 22% higher. And so it's time for OPPD to return to what matters most, providing low-cost electricity providing a reliable electricity at the lowest possible cost. I am the right candidate to help right this ship. I ask for your vote on May 10th.
Thank you. And Rick Yoder.
Thank you once again for hosting the forum today. Certainly have appreciated the time spent here, and I look forward to it. You know, one of the things, I said in my opening statement that one of the things I wanted to focus on was affordability and accountability. And while it didn't come up as a question, I think I do have to point to the problems that were had at Fort Calhoun, the $200 million that was spent there, and the $2 million a month that's being spent there currently. I'm a solutions-oriented guy. I think there are approaches here, but that is a leaky bucket that needs to be plugged, and we should either sell Fort Calhoun to, if there is a private interest that's interested in it, or shut it down, but while there is still money left in the reserves to pay for that shutdown. So that's my extra 30 seconds. So thanks for listening tonight. I too have a website, rick-yoder.com, and you're welcome to email me there. My 3 points are respect the past. I'm very much supportive of public power. I think it's a model that will continue to work. Focus on the future. That means looking at new technologies and looking at new business models. Instead of focusing on making the energy, moving the energy around is something that we can do. And then bet on technology. You know, the technology is changing. It's a rapidly changing technology, so rapidly, in fact, that it presents both a challenge and an opportunity. It is OPPD's responsibility to take care of that.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters would like to thank all the candidates for participating in the forum. And we would also like to let you know that we have done other forums. We've done 7 this primary season, and you can find them all on our YouTube channel. If you go to omahalwv.org, you can link right to the YouTube channel there and view all the forums. We have LD legislative districts 13 and 39. We've done the MUD board. We've done OPPD subdivision 5, the 2nd Congressional District Republican debate, and we also had the Omaha Public School Board subdistricts 1 and 7. So for the League of Women Voters, I'm Geri Simon, reminding you to inform yourself about the issues and the candidates, and on May 10th, go vote, Omaha. Hi, I'm Geri Simon, host of the League of Women Voters Go Vote Omaha show. We're bringing back our highly unpaid lobbyist and public policy director, Peggy Adair, for a unicameral wrap-up show. Join us live Monday, May 9th at 8 p.m. as we talk about what went right, what went nowhere, and what to expect next year in the unicameral. Get ready to call in your questions. That's Monday, May 9th, 8 to 9 p.m. on KPAO, Cox 22 or CenturyLink 89. And remember, with the League of Women Voters, go vote Omaha.